What is going on, you guys? It's your boy ChatGP here, and we're back with episode 30 of my video game therapy series. At long last, it is back. There are at least 3 people that really want this series, and I guess whatever you call it, to continue, because I've been pestered by all 3 people that watch my videos, and no more, because that's pretty much it. Anyway, by popular demand, I'm back. Hopefully, I can pick up where I left off, but more accurately, this will be kind of a clusterfuck as I get back into the mix of these things. It has indeed been a while, but, as anything, you gotta get back on the horse at some point. It's gonna be a little rough. Anyway, originally why I kind of stopped making these for a time was just that things got busy, and things were the various commitments that I had were unsustainable in parallel. So I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, like being in a point where your work or whatever it is unsustainable. I think as long as it's a temporary unsustainability. I think a couple months of, things that are chaotic is not the worst thing in the world, right? That's pretty much how it got for me. It was a little chaotic for a while, and now it's kind of back to normal. I am able to do some more things I want and cut out some of the shit that I don't want, and I like doing these. I think it grounds me a lot. It gives me something else to do. I very much have this production versus consumption mentality where I try to produce more than I consume. And I've fallen off the wagon a little bit admittedly with that. I talked about my consumption of YouTube as something that is it's kind of the rabbit hole I tend to fall into easily. Some people thank God I never got into TikTok or anything, but everyone has their own little vices that they fall victim to in one way or the other, and mine is YouTube rabbit holes. My strategy for that, if I can share that briefly, is to try and essentially bomb my recommended so it's terrible and even I don't want to watch it. So every time I find myself, I catch myself on YouTube, I try to just click on the dumbest videos possible, the ones that I just would never want to watch otherwise. Even if I end up watching a video that I would want to watch, I'm hoping that if I click on enough dumb thumbnails, my recommended feed's going to be terrible, and I'm not going to want to watch it. But, I suppose this will be a good time. I'm switching geographic locations pretty soon, in a couple weeks, which is actually not that soon because, time's all relative. But, I figured I could kind of prepare myself and get into the habit of doing these again, because it is a lot of fun, and it's again kind of better to produce these than to consume a lot of the garbage that is elsewhere out there. The good news is that I have plenty of content, meaning I have plenty of little items on my text document over here, so I'm hoping that keeps me busy for, at least several episodes. There's not, it's possible for me to blow through these pretty quickly, but I'm hoping that is not the case. But anyway, so I'm switching locations, and I wanted to do this instead. So in doing these more reliably, I'm also going to try and not do the whole YouTube thing. There are some sports teams I'm following, so I'm going to allow myself kind of the go-ahead with those, at least until, they get to a wrap-up part of their respective seasons. But in terms of just random YouTube crap or other consumption, I'm going to try and curb my behavior on that. Not that it's in any way bad. If anything, it's far healthier than a lot of my peers, but again, it's I want to hold myself to my own standard, and I think that's I think comparing yourself to other people regularly is just a losing battle, right? Not to I am mightier than thou kind of comment. I just mean in the sense that, it's like, oh, I'm better than average. Like, is it ever an interest of yours to be average, or is it, why are you comparing yourself to anyone why is average even a comparison, right? I think in and of itself, it's not a dumb comparison, but just statistically, you're above and below average on many different things. And I think if you are always compare yourself to the average of other people, you can get into a habit of, thinking that was where you started, right? Versus if your average, where you started, if your average was well above the average's average, then you're going to think that you're doing great, when really you've been getting worse. So I think keeping it, relative to where you are and your average is a lot better than the average, if that makes sense. This isn't even on my text document, by the way. This is just me going off into an aside. But anyway, yeah, it's not a problem. I'm not some recovering addict of YouTube, but I would rather myself not consume any of it and just spend my time doing anything else, because there's plenty of interesting things and people and stuff for me to do that does not involve, and essentially otherwise antisocial activity. Not to say it's all bad. I'm sure I've, learned some stuff, and sure, whatever. But also, here's the other danger of it is you're very limited. With what little control we already have over our own lives, I think it's foolish to willingly sacrifice control of what, because I always say that what you see is what you think, and what you think is what you'll do. So limiting control over that doesn't really make any sense. You should try to maximize the control. I'm not saying you ever have ultimate control, but relatively speaking, have more control over what you see, and thus what you think, and thus what you do should be in everyone's personal best interest. Again, I'm not telling anyone else how to live. I'm just saying, for me, that's the way I would kind of want to operate. So I would rather I spend no time consuming any of that. And I guess I can check off one of my first items here on my monster list. Here's kind of maybe an unpopular opinion that I have. I think news, I just want to say any type of news media, this is even like, kind of Twitter drama or whatever, obviously stuff like CNN or Fox or whatever you call news, wherever you get your news. I consider all of that to be entertainment. And maybe there was that whole lawsuit about Fox being entertainment, not news. I think news as a whole, no matter what, like even if they are an official news station, news in itself is just entertainment. Like, when is the last time any kind of news article had any bearing on anything that you did in your day-to-day life, right? I mean, even like you can go so far as to say it's like the news of who got elected president was useless in determining what you did. Like, is it gonna do anything like in my day-to-day life other than something I'm going to talk about, which again could have been a movie, right? It could have been pure entertainment. I could talk about that. Outside of that, what I just don't see any. There's no other impact that it has. It doesn't affect. Sorry, these stupid piglins are going to drive me nuts. It doesn't impact, in some ways, a hair on my head to whatever the news is. So, for example, I'm going to use an example here because I think that might help. Here's a news story. Local boy drowns in pool or something, and maybe it's even is in your hometown or maybe it's not. Who cares? What are you just not going to swim anymore? Like, isn't that a little like, aren't you taking it a little bit out of proportion maybe? If you're going to let one, bad news story about something. And even if, let's say it's in the aggregate, all right, a new study confirms that, eating chocolate is, 2% better for your health. What, you're just going to start gorging on chocolate now, like as if, your consumption of chocolate wasn't, was at odds with something. I mean, I just think even the changes that you would have made in consuming any kind of news media pale in comparison to the time you spend, for lack of a better word, dicking around with, listening to the news and the media. Oh, some politician said something ridiculous, or oh, there's some legislation in Florida that is, somebody's angry about. Do you even live in Florida? I mean, do you? No. Okay, fine. Even if you do, are you in the affected party? Is somebody going to come to your house and put you in jail because of a new law that was enacted? I mean, maybe, if they're going to do like banning alcohol or something, maybe, all right, maybe that's like, something that's maybe newsworthy, I would say, if anything. But someone's going to tell you about that, right? You don't have to be the one to know that. If it's that big of a deal, you will know, because, somebody's going to say, hey, you hear they banned alcohol? It's not like you needed to be at the forefront of that, right? So it's almost like, okay, yeah, I'm not saying everybody collectively is all of a sudden going to stop watching the news, but, for someone like me, who I'm not going to be the person, refreshing Twitter, so I'm not going to get the most update. So if it's that important, someone will tell me. Otherwise, it's really not that important, right? And even like the president, okay, I've had, I don't know, a handful. I don't even know how many presidents I've had because they're not that important. I've had a handful of presidents in my lifetime. Has it really done anything to me? Who is the president? I mean, outside of, what people get angry about and talk about, there's no impact on, my day-to-day life, right? I still do the same things day in and day out. I'm trying to think if would there have been any substantial difference in my behavior had I, been on top of who was elected or who wasn't. So that's why I make the claim that all forms of news, such and such, did something terrible, or so-and-so is, now illegal. It's all entertainment, in my opinion. It's all entertainment. Because none of it is going to do anything, right? Unless it's, your name on the headline saying that, you got arrested. Well, also, even if it was, why would anyone else care, right? And if it's someone who's that close to you and personal, wouldn't you know anyway? Would you have really needed to have the news to tell you that? I don't know. I'm very much, I think the line between news and entertainment is essentially is zero now. There's no, it's blurred beyond recognition. Because also think about it from the news perspective. These news entities are not often or not. They're not, even government sponsored agencies, right? A lot of times they're, independent. We're an independent news organization. And even if they are, their job is to make money. Businesses are, as a whole. And a lot of these things operate, they either are a business or they operate as a business. Even if it's within the government. The government still has things that they operate as businesses. So what is the point of a business, a news business, let's say? Well, it's to, make money. And how are you going to make money, right? Okay, we need to inform the public, so we need more eyes. As many eyes as we can get on this piece of media as possible. It's going to give us more money, right? Because we, maybe show ads on our website, or, it really should be advertisers that you're going to make your money from, right? People that advertise on CNBC's, whatever, their radio station. Okay, so what is going to get you the most, the most looks, right? In terms of news media. Well, whatever is the hot topic that's going to get people, that's going to get people to click on it, right? So if I have a news title that's, studies show that, eating healthy and a well-balanced diet and exercising regularly, lowers all chance of death. No one's going to click on that because, Dodoy, that's a very boring, obvious, everyone knows that. And that's a horrible example. I wish I had a better example. If the headline is not catchy or is not novel in some way, no one's going to click on it. And thus, the business entity is not going to make any money. So why then, are we shocked to hear that all these, such and such is gay. Oh my God. Like, who gives a, I mean, they're just trying to get people to click on it. But that doesn't mean that they have any kind of journalist integrity. I think that the days of people reporting what's important and relevant is gone. And this, like, you know, I hate to use the word hyper sensationalized too much, but that form of content, you know, everything's got to be crazy. Everything's got to be crazier than the last thing that comes out. The next thumbnail's got to be wild. And I guess it's just really an extension of clickbait. Because now, especially from the younger generations or growing up, like that's like the way we're conditioned, is to view and to see clickbait and to, you know, because you still fall for it, right? It's not like I can sit here and rip on clickbait all day, but at the end of the day, I still am likely to fall for some clickbait if it, you know, has the right title that you know, either pisses me off or whatever. You know, like they have the whole rage bait thing now, where it's like the whole point of it. That where I see this is in there's this subreddit, and I'm not on Reddit that much. I'm on Reddit less frequently than YouTube, but sometimes when I catch myself going on YouTube, I'll go on to Reddit instead, which is not any better, but it's equally a cesspool. But the one that's like rage bait now is DIY, and like DIY do it yourself is like what it's colloquially known as, but DIY is DIWHY, like why would you do this? And that's, you know, that's really what the oh my God, that's what the subreddit is, and all it is, I'm convinced, is just like these stupid home projects that they're so useless in every conceivable way, that it, like, the fact that they're wasting their time making it is infuriating. So you see these videos, you're like, why in the hell would I ever need to make this? I wish I had an example of this, but if you want to be like angered beyond belief, go on Reddit and go look at the DIY WHY subreddit, and I promise you, within like 5 minutes, you'll be pissed off. Not because of you know what they're making isn't like interest. Like, I mean, I guess it's, if you were challenged to make it as like part of a like, you know, some kind of challenge, it'd be interesting. But the fact that people are making these, you know, with the intention that it's some kind of like real do-it-yourself at home, like useful project, these things are so fucking like useless and pointless that it just pisses you off. So anyway, like, to me, that is really the way. Not to say that all news people aren't like, you know, just rage baiting, but in a lot of ways, like, if we're talking about politics, that's what gets people interested. I mean, and I'm not here to judge, you know, why you live your life, and if you live your life to, I don't know, quote unquote, fight for whatever issues that are important and relevant, and that entails you staying up to date with all the politics, then again, I'm not one to judge, but to me, it doesn't have any impact on my life, and also is not really productive in any way. Not to say that I'm, you know, everything has to be productive, but it just seems like a waste of time. And does it, you know, even if it's not a waste of time, does it bring any joy to my life? Like, is it, you know, any bit fun or interesting to do? No, it just doesn't, to me, it doesn't bring any value. So I, you know, can couple news and entertainment into one, you know, chunk. So anyway, that's one opinion piece that I had that perhaps is interesting. Oh my God, this is a mess. Anyway, I'll move on to the next thing, just because I feel like I've beaten that horse to death. You know, and I'm curious to hear, to hear good counter arguments on that. Not to say that I wouldn't have any rebuttals, but I'm curious to hear how other people view their news media consumption. I just don't, you know, if they're aware that it is in 99% of ways pointless for them to bother engaging with that, then it's fine. But, you know, my argument being that most of it's irrelevant. Like 95% of what you're going to see on the news is irrelevant to you. It doesn't matter. Like, would this have changed my life if I seen it or not? No. So anyway, just my side on that. Okay, let me look at the next. Oh, sorry, got one of these things. me look at the next item on here. Here's something else. This is another opinion piece, I suppose. Personal anecdotes or even just one-off examples are, I mean, I'm not sure if, some statistician or some scientist or something. In my view, they are the weakest form of evidence for anything. So let's say if you're discussing a topic with somebody, or if you're arguing, and somebody brings a personal anecdote into the mix or an example, they are incredibly weak as a form of evidence. Now, a case in point might be that I don't know, you're some investing guru, right? You're all there is to know about investing in whatever industry, and you use examples like, oh well, Warren Buffett, and you just name off, like, I don't know, famous or otherwise like well-known people that have outspoken opinions who are not provably wrong immediately. So if that sentence makes sense. And same with people who might use, like, if you're ever using Zuckerberg or Elon Musk or Warren Buffett or Tom Cruise as an example for anything that you're any kind of argument, to me, you're an idiot. It's the weakest form of, like, you really think that, oh, because it worked for Tom Cruise, it's going to work for you, or oh, because it worked for insert famous person. Like, you have any idea, like, the bias that goes, like, because really what it comes down to is it's just survivorship bias, right? These people are not, like, again, if we're talking about average, these people are not, not inbuilt with any kind of average. It's not like, maybe at one point they might have seemed average, but another thing you have to consider when we're talking about averages is luck, right? These people might have had, maybe they're average in every conceivable way, every possible way you can pick out of the hat that they're lucky, or they're average. The only thing that you wouldn't be able to do that is luck. There's no argument that I could ever see being made that Zuckerberg or Tom Cruise or Elon was not lucky. And I mean I'm talking about lucky in the top 0.0001 percentile of being lucky. Now, being lucky in and of itself is a difficult quantifiable metric. I understand that. So I understand that saying luck in a statement like that is problematic, perhaps, but we can't discount luck and with any of this. And especially if we're going to make an argument on anything, if you're using essentially luck as your only real evidence, because that's all that, in my mind, that's all that Zuckerberg or Elon Musk represents as a idea, is that they're incredibly, incredibly lucky with whatever they were doing. Now, you could say, oh, he's smart, oh, he's a genius. Do you know how many smart, genius, otherwise, like, impressive people end up doing nothing ever comparable in their entire lives solely because they weren't as lucky? Right? You could say, oh, well, he knew all along that it was going to be. No, get your head out of your ass, okay? They took a gamble on something. It paid off, a million X. And now all of a sudden they're the figurehead for every smart or intelligent thing that's ever been done. Like, stop giving, them all the credit for this or that when that's just not, they just don't deserve it, right? I'm not saying that, they're dumb people. Like, why would I'm not making that argument either. I'm just saying to use them as an example as why something is the way it is or why something is going to work is discounting a otherwise, like, hilarious amount of failures or people that are equally, if not more brilliant, who have lacked that, top nth percentage of luck. So if I'm ever in a argument or conversation with somebody and they begin to pull out examples, oh, well, Warren Buffett's, strategy of investing in the... Listen, buddy, if you were to go back into, Warren Buffett's heyday or whatever, even if you followed the advice that he gave to a T, whatever, and maybe you just picked different companies. I don't even know what his success is. So I'm using a bad example here because I have no domain knowledge. But I promise you, you would not be able to replicate what they did. And even if it doesn't pick a person, pick a time period. Even if you follow like all the advice, because ultimately, like luck played, whether they want to admit it or not, luck plays an enormous factor. A factor almost sometimes like multiplicative of your actual abilities and talents in your quote unquote success that people just tend to forget. They just think it's all this calculated game. It's like, to think you have any of, in my mind, it's an amount of being just cocky, right? You really think that we're able to calculate and predict everything that's going to happen, and you're like, you have no idea. Like, at any point, the world, unluckiness, however you want to define this entity, could strike you down in every conceivable way and leave you with quite literally nothing. Everything that you might hold dear to your heart or that you worked hard, it could come falling down instantly. And I don't mean to sound like some kind of cynic or, I don't know, just be the bearer of bad news. But I think it's important to understand that in grounding your ideas for these lofty, predictions or whatever that you have, or, these, not even predictions, lofty justifications on why a certain thing is the way that it is. And you are using Zuckerberg or Elon Musk as an example. And to me, you just look like an idiot if you do that. So, I don't mean to say that, you should just live your life as if everything's going to be taken from you immediately with you having no control. And I think that's a very bleak and just kind of, it's not really a fun way to live. So don't do that, obviously. I'm just saying that if you find yourself using these personal anecdotes as like, I'm going to be successful because I'm going to do what this jackass told me. It's like, doing what they're going to do will not get you to where you want to go. Like, I think the number of people who have followed, XYZ's advice to the T and have become immensely successful because of it are like, my hand is not small enough. There's no fingers on my hand that counts those number of people. So in order for you to accomplish whatever, I want to be, the next, I want to, solve world peace and be the dictator. I don't even know what kind of goals people have these days, just because I'm not that, in the know. But I promise you, following, one person's advice, or not even one person's advice, one person's worldview on how things work is not how, they don't have the answers, right? And I think if you're going to take anything away from my conversations around this, are you got to come up with your own worldview, and it's wrong. Like, it's just wrong. Whatever I say is wrong. Right? Whatever Steve Jobs has said is wrong. Whatever anyone has said is wrong. And I think you can't assign more value to, Steve Jobs' opinion, or Bill Gates' opinion based off of like their material successes, for lack of a better way of putting it. Because again, we're discounting an enormous amount of luck, like not even enormous, a incalculable amount of luck that goes into these people being as successful, quote unquote, as they are. So don't, just because, they're not Steve Jobs or they're not Bill Gates, whatever fucking moron you want to put in there, just because they're not that person does not mean that they're any less worthy of like your ear kind of thing. It's like, I'm going to listen to him because he's Warren Buffett. He's an investing genius. Okay, maybe he probably knows more than the layman. Okay, I'll give him that. But if you pick anyone else, Johnny Investor, who, has his own reasons for being brilliant, would I pick the odds of Johnny Investor over Warren Buffett? Like, would I pick Warren Buffett 10,000 to 1? Like, no. I think the difference between Johnny Investor and Warren Buffett probably aren't that big. So my point is, take all of this crap that you hear everywhere, no matter what, with a healthy amount of salt. So anyone, especially somebody who's made it or has done, has achieved their dreams and a financial freedom, whatever dream they're selling you in their TikTok video or in their YouTube, take it with a grain of salt, knowing that if this person was successful and they're using their anecdotal story as evidence for their success, you do not know the amount. They're lucky, right? That's one part of it, because on the other side of the coin, Think about if everything they had tried to do did not go their way. If they got unlucky, if they were as unlucky as they were lucky, where would they be now? Would they be talking to you? Would they have 10,000 subscribers on whatever? You know what I'm saying? So don't. And I'm not meaning to imply that I'm in any way a lucky or unlucky person. I have my own, like, I still have a lot of chances in my life to be lucky or unlucky, right? I suppose in terms of, an average amount of time I would expect to have left, but it's possible I get unlucky. I could walk outside and get struck by lightning, right? And any amount of anything I would have said is now like, oh, this guy's stupid because he got struck by lightning. It sounds dumb if I say it like that, but ultimately you don't know what unlucky or lucky, happenings have happened to other people who are lucky. And you only really hear from the survivors, especially if you're on a platform if you're on some kind of platform where they're promoting, or YouTube as a platform. You're going to hear from people who are successful there, because people like me don't get, I'm obviously being a little bit of a pity part there. They're not getting my a billion people aren't seeing what I'm saying, right? So you're not really getting a balanced viewpoint if you just listen to people who get views. People who get views are all that's being shown to you. So I don't know. I think people tend to just kind of ignore survivorship bias because logic might be foolproof. Sure, Warren Buffett could provide me an investing strategy that logically is foolproof, that makes sense, that is balances risk and whatever. And yeah, there's probably a lot of principles that he teaches that are otherwise great things to know and understand. But if you're comparing the work or the literature or the sayings of Johnny Investor versus Warren Buffett, you can't use, oh, well, he's Warren Buffett as, the excuse to, tell Johnny Investor why he's stupid. So, I don't know. I think that people tend to, that use examples or personal anecdotes you're inflating survivorship bias to a degree that, makes me think you're stupid to not realize, what kind of the factor that luck played in that entire formula. Because ultimately, the world is too chaotic and unknown to have any number of calculable amount of success, right? You can play the odds in your favor, right? You can put yourself in a position to be lucky. And you can do the opposite. You can, kind of screw yourself over. But to think that you have absolute control over your luck or your, the output of, your efforts, you could do everything right and still fail. And that's kind of what I'm getting at. So don't ever feel like, I don't know, somebody has all the answers, or that there's some amount of guarantee with anything. There's no guarantees. So I don't know. That's kind of my opinion on that. I hate when people try to use these, maybe just because I'm a very abstract person. I appreciate kind of abstract, I don't know, otherwise hypothetical, examples instead of these anecdotal, right? I think anecdotes are just the weakest form of evidence. If I don't even consider it evidence. I think it's just, that doesn't even register with me. Oh, just because Steve Jobs said it and it worked for him, all of a sudden, that's gospel now? It's okay, maybe there's something right about that, but that alone is not support. Okay, fine, but let's say it's Steve Jobs and 3 other people also did it. It's still, again, 3 other people in the, potentially billions of tries. You're bound to get lucky. 3 out of a billion is very, very low odds. So it's still not, you're not proving a lot right to me. Now, if you're going to show me that, okay, out of the 4 billion attempts, 3.8 billion are successful, okay, there's aggregate data that is supportive. But even a dozen, let's say there's a dozen, let's say there's 100, let's say there's 1,000 successful events in whatever you're postulating here. 1,000 out of what? How many attempts? 14 million? What's 1,000 divided by 14 million? Not that high of an, so don't, you have to kind of keep the aggregate in mind, especially when you're ever using these anecdotal evidence as support for whatever it is that you're arguing. So people just tend to ignore that, and it just really pisses me off. So anyway, I think I've beaten that horse to death. But anyway, yeah, that's my opinion on that. All right, let's Sorry, drinking water. Let's I got a crazy hypothetical, and this is I don't even know why I came up with this. I guess it was because I was on the subway and I thought I was going to get robbed. So I was thinking, I'm not even sure why my mind went this way. I'm thinking about like a reverse robbery. What does that even look like? What if somebody came up to you, they pulled out a gun, and they pulled out a bunch of money, and instead of whoops, that was an accident. And instead of them like pointing the gun at you and trying to take your money, they had money already, and they pulled a gun and they pointed the gun at themselves, and they held the money out in one hand and the gun to their head in the other hand, and your choice was really to take the money and they would shoot themselves, or to reject the money and then they would walk away. Now we're talking a lot of money here. We're just talking an undisclosed, like, thick fistful of cash. And you wouldn't really go up to this, some random, suburban white woman I'm thinking of like, you go up to somebody that you would think would rob you. I mean, again, I'm not saying that people of any kind of demographic are more likely to rob you, but statistically I'm sure there's, you could have a few archetypes or potential users that, or potential robbers that would fit this. Go to someone who's like, oh, this person look like they would rob me. I'm scared of getting robbed. But you instead do this switcheroo tactic where you're like, okay, you can take this money I'm going to give you, but you're killing somebody. Like I'm going to shoot myself when you do it. And I'd be curious to see. Now, obviously, if you're, oh, no, I wouldn't. No one would ever do that. Everyone's so good in their heart. Like, you're a fool. I'm curious to see what. I don't know. Like, I think it'd be interesting. Again, I don't even know why this came up into my head as a hypothetical of any kind, but it was just something I thought was an interesting, like, thought experiment. And if there was some alternate, if we were able to program the, 7 billion human, AIs that could, we could run simulations of society, I'd be curious to see what this hypothetical would net in terms of their aggregate results, right? I wouldn't be so concerned with, my immediate people, because I would think I'm not friends with people that would take that money and not blink. But I'm curious to see in the aggregate what would it be a surprising percentage? Probably not, honestly. I just think it's kind of just a more interesting thought, hypothetical, right? And if you're someone that is considering taking the money, it's like, because I mean, in some ways, it's like, ooh, why do I care? I don't know this person anyway. It's a stranger, presumably. It's not like you're not going up to, your dad, and obviously, it's just someone you don't know. Both people are strangers in this hypothetical, so it's completely stranger on stranger, and it'd be interesting to see. I don't know. I just thought that was a stupid hypothetical I could throw out there. So, not that that's a there's any more there. Something else. I guess I'm kind of on this more of a ranty mood today, so maybe this is a good fit. And this is also, I think it came to me on the same day that this random hypothetical did. People that wear, and I don't really care what anyone wears. Like, I'm not judgmental and to a fault, but to some extent, I question people's clothing choices at times. And I think part of the vibe I think people are trying to give is like, hey, look at me. I'm edgy. I don't give a fuck what I'm wearing. You're wearing essentially, like, you can kind of maybe paint this picture for yourself, but think about someone that is trying to convey that they don't care, right? They're just, they don't care. But then maybe they're wearing like I just think somebody who's wearing these like ripped, like some old, I don't know, like a really bad thrifter's outfit, as a, but like an anarchist thrifter. Someone's like, yeah, I don't care about anything, and I'm gonna wear all this garbage on my. But you're kind of sending the wrong message because it's like, hey, look at me, I don't give a fuck. But in that same vein, like, clearly there's some amount of attention you want for wearing this, otherwise ridiculous ensemble. So how much do you really not care? I guess that was the point I was getting at. It's like someone's kind of, oh, hey, look at me, I don't give a fuck. It's like, well, then why wouldn't you wear something that's inconspicuous? Like, if you just really didn't care what people thought about you, I wouldn't wear something flashy, or not even flashy, something just that would draw any attention. That would draw any attention whatsoever. I would wear something that's incredibly, like, ignorable, for lack of a better word. Like, I would just wear, no one's going to, double take at somebody just wearing sweatpants and a sweater. It's like, that's a very, like, they clearly are not, they didn't put much effort into that, so it's like, okay, that's fine, but they're not drawing attention to themselves. But there are outfits and people I've seen that wear things that clearly draw attention to themselves. But then the attitude's also like, first of all, what the hell are you wearing? But it's like, oh, I don't care what if you're going to judge me for what I'm wearing. Look, you could have just worn something that, again, was ignorable. Like, I almost can't not look at that ridiculous outfit and, like, think about, like, I can't not judge you for looking at that. So if you really wanted to, like, show me that you didn't care, you just wear sweatpants and a sweater. Like, and I guess I think there's some amount of free expression with this, but I have trouble believing that it's, somebody's honest, expression of them buying, the homeless person's pants and putting them on and wearing boots that go up to their thighs. Like, what the hell are you wearing? Like, did you look at yourself before you left? And I'm not saying that you're allowed to wear that, but you can't give up the vibe that, like, oh, look, I don't care, bro, I'm just wearing what I want to wear. Then it seems like you seem like you want attention for wearing that. I don't know. I just think there are people in particular that I saw that was like, these people clearly are trying to send a message that they're not, they're very much not, against the status quo of people dressing a certain way, which I'm fine with. But at the same time, why are you're drawing attention to yourself. It's like, that's kind of hypocritical or counterintuitive to the whole like, I don't care what you think of me, but clearly you're looking for attention, so you kind of do care what people think of you. I don't know. I just thought it was a bit, didn't make much sense to me that people that, maybe they're going after a different, that's not their vibe. Their vibe is to, like, hey, look at me. I'm not even sure what the energy is that they're going after, but it wasn't something that I understood very well. So I just thought that was a kind of a weird, I don't know. I wrote it down, so I think I'll talk about it. Let's see. I'll try to do one more. Yeah, something else. So I'm not sure how well I'm going to be able to describe this, but hopefully you guys get the point. Do you know it's like that meme text where, every, like, the words are randomly capitalized, right? I think it's mostly closely associated with that SpongeBob meme where it's like, let's say, like, some star athlete says that, oh, like, I didn't cheat. Someone will post a meme with, like, the SpongeBob and, like, the beak neck thing, says, oh, I didn't cheat, as if it's like being completely sarcastic and satire about, like, oh, this person's obviously, like, this is obviously a lie. I was thinking that is kind of the equivalent. So you know how we use quotes or italics for emphasis, like when we're writing? I think that is the equivalent of it for sarcasm. And I was thinking, if we're gonna, kind of innovate our language, that might be something we could bake into, like, even formalized writing. So if you're gonna, not to say that sarcasm is prevalent in formal writing, because it's not, but I think we can use that, as a society, as the equivalent of, this is sarcastic writing, because it's, it's its own, I don't know, it's got its own, like, brand, or its own, like, I don't know, format, right? The text that is randomly capitalized is obvious hint for, okay, this person is being sarcastic or satire. I just think formalizing it as, it could be thought of as the formal way of in the same way that italics or quotes are for emphasis or for, such as, quote unquote, we could use that text. I'm just thinking there's not an easy way to verbalize it, because quote unquote, obviously you just say quote unquote whatever the hell you're going to say, and people know that you're speaking about it, as if it were in quotes. And I suppose the same is kind of true for, the same is not really true for italics, but you can emphasize something, and I suppose if you emphasize something, it's if people were transcribing it, it might be italicized or maybe even bolden or something. But there's not an easy way for it to for you to share that you want this to be randomly capitalized. And I guess you could the tone would be it's sarcastic, but instead of italicizing sarcastic language, you would make it the randomly capitalized language text. I just thought it was funny. It was an interesting one of those shower thoughts where it's the same way we use quotes for things that people are saying and bold and italics. We could use that randomly capitalized. It should just be mainstream. That's my opinion on it. I just think we should kind of standardize that practice and make it well known, such that it's even boomers now kind of know that stuff that is written in that way is sarcastic. Because I don't know, I think it's just kind of funny. It's one of those things that one of those gems I think that people have created that I think is good. It's I don't know, fun. Use it more. But anyway, yeah, I'll do this last one here. So I have a fair number of Zoom meetings with people, and oftentimes during especially these meetings, if you're a techie person, there's this pressure, especially if you're a developer. And I guess I'm going to be speaking to a niche here, so my apologies if you're not, if you don't care or this is not your thing. But there's a certain pressure when you're supposed to be a good developer that I almost want to, during these Zoom meetings, I almost want to act weird, just because so many of these people that you see, whether it be Zuckerberg or the Sam Bankman-Fried guy, all these guys are weird as fuck in their own way. People kind of associate that with this young tech genius. And the moment you are articulate or, you sound like a normal person, you kind of, people are okay, this guy's not he's not Rain Man smart, he's not autistic, the brilliant kind, you know what I mean? And, and while that's obviously incredibly insulting, but there's a certain pressure I felt even in some of these calls to be twitchy and weird and come across as okay, this guy's kind of weird, but he's probably a really good developer, and that to me is just a very strange pressure, a pressure to be autistic, but a Rain Man style autistic, which again I just think is a ridiculous, the fact that I'm feeling pressure to be a weirdo during these meetings is crazy, but it's the way I've felt, because I think sometimes if you're too articulate and you are able to clearly say what you mean and all that, you're okay, this guy's a salesman, he's this guy's not brilliant, whatever, he's not smart, but only because the archetype of people that are, I guess now they're more professional scammers with the whole saying Bankman-Fried nonsense, but they're people that aren't as you're not as good with technology if you are a regular person. You almost have to be this autistic level of brilliance, which I don't know, it's a very strange thing. It actually hurts you to be more articulate. So I found myself acting more weird, just based off the pressure of not wanting to be articulate and normal, so that people think I'm smarter than I am. And part of it is just you innately have a desire to people to think you're smart, right? I don't want people to think I'm a complete dumbass, regardless in whatever context they're we're talking about. So I you have to kind of adapt. Just like if you were a good salesman, they have to appear genuine, whether it's manipulative or not. They need to appear genuine so that they can push product. It doesn't help them to, like, you know, be honest about how crappy their product is. You know, they're going to put on the best face. It'll help them sell whatever they need to sell. So in the same way, like for a developer, if you're putting your best foot forward, you're not going to be clearly explaining your language. You're going to be like, you know, I love World of Warcraft, and oh my God, you know what I mean? And that's just, it's funny to me that I've felt this pressure firsthand to be this this weirdo who, like, you know, doesn't really, you know, it's kind of weird to be around and makes you a little uncomfortable, but he's probably a really good, you know, really good programmer. I don't know, it's just a weird, like, isn't that crazy that people, like, have so closely associated this, you know, Rain Man brilliance, this tech weirdo reptilian guy with, like, being a better developer instead of, you know, being an articulate person who can share their thoughts. I don't know. It's crazy to me. But anyway, yeah, I'm gonna wrap it up there. I don't. Maybe this was a good start back. Maybe it wasn't. I'm not sure. But either way, it's good to be back making these videos. I do enjoy doing them, and I'll try to do these instead of you know, watching mindless YouTube content and just not really rotting my brain, but just, you know, kind of radicalizing myself, because I think that's where a lot of media lends itself to. I'll talk about that next time, kind of the you know, consumption of, especially, you know, internet media to radicalization. It's a tendency to do that more than anything else. But anyway, I'll cut it off there. Thanks for watching. I will see you guys next time. Peace out.